The thing about Dad's music that any singer will tell you is that he was a master of melody, and every singer is just seeking for a wonderful melody.
He has a signature sound that's very distinctive. He really had his own textures and flavors in his music that is unmistakable.
There was an interview with Henry, and one of the questions was, Mr. Mancini, to what do you attribute your sense of melody? And his answer was, well, you see, I'm all Italian, and that makes me a superior human being. But it was a gift. I mean, he had a gift for melody. It's rare.
Even though he was the biggest at the time, he never forgot who his real friends were.
That's what they remember most about him, his sense of humor, his humanity.
Henry got along with everybody. He was a great father. He was just an all-around great human being. Henry grew up in West Aliquippa, Pennsylvania, which is really the wrong side of the tracks. And, he was a child of the Depression, as was I. So it took a lot of dreaming, and he knew very early on what he wanted to do. His father worked in the steel mill and taught him to play the piccolo and the flute. And as a young boy, he played with his father in the Sons of Italy band. It was not a very sophisticated outfit, but it was good training for Henry. It was when he was 12 years old that his father took him to the Stanley Theater in Pittsburgh. I think the movie that was playing when he went there was The Crusades, and he was mesmerized by the fact that the music was coming from somewhere. He thought it was coming from behind the screen. But when he found out how it was actually done, that was the impetus, I think, that led him on his path. 1946, I went to an audition for Tex Beneke, who was looking for a lead singer. And the young man playing for the auditions was a 22-year-old handsome, tall Italian by the name of Henry Mancini. I was hired, and I left on a train from Glendale, California, for San Francisco with 36 strange men, one of them being Henry, who was very sweet to me. And we became engaged and set a date, and that was it.
They just seemed like a very happy couple. And then they had respect for each other and not selfish at all. My mother did everything she could to enhance the profile of my father before he was famous.
My mom would be the first one to tell you that she gave my dad the confidence to actually become who he was. Look, he was, as we all think, he's a genius, so all of that would have come to surface at some point in time. But I think she really gave him the confidence, and she had such respect for him. And she knew really early on in their relationship what potential and where he was going to go, where he could go.
He used to call me his extra set of ears, because having grown up in music myself, I was very well versed on all the standards of the day. And if anything came too close to something I knew, I would just kind of gently say, you know what, maybe you should try it another way. And he would listen.
So I think that they were very good at bouncing things off of each other, and she was brutally honest with him.
But the nicest thing used to be through the years when I would be in my dressing room or in my study or whatever, and he would call me on the phone, and he said, come on up, I want to play something for you. And it would always be something great. Henry was always turned on to the visual image and trying to write something that would breathe life into that visual image.
He was working at Universal for 6 years, composed or reassembled music for 125 or so films.
he was on the lot one day and he passed Blake Edwards, and Blake had just seen Dad's score of Touch of Evil with Orson Welles and Janet Leigh and Charlton Heston, and Blake was really knocked out by the score, and it was the type of music that he wanted to do for Peter Gunn, which he was just about to start. And he asked Dad if he wanted to score this show called Peter Gunn, and Dad, he said, "Oh God, I've always wanted to do a Western." So that was when they met, and then obviously this wonderful 30-plus year relationship.
Two drifters off to see the world. There's such a lot of world to see.
I remember in Moon River very well because when Breakfast at Tiffany's was previewed in San Francisco, we went to Blake Edwards' suite after the screening, and it was obvious to everybody that the film was a little long and there would have to be cuts made. And at that time, the head of Paramount Studios suggested that the song Moon River had to go. And there was just a stunned silence in the room because it was such a poignant part of the movie. And legend has it that Audrey Hepburn had a little bit of a fit and said over my dead body. I don't remember that as being a fact because Audrey was just too gentle, but she fought for the song.
The first time that I became even aware of Breakfast at Tiffany's or Moon River or any of that was when, as a family, we were watching the Academy Awards. And I remember clearly sitting in our den in Northridge, California.
Of course, Moon River was written with Johnny Mercer. So Mr. and Mrs. Mercer and Henry and I went to the Academy Awards.
When his name was announced as the winner, we saw him on television walk up, and we all kind of hugged and danced around like, you see the baseball players do when they win the championship. So it was a very happy night, and in the morning there was this shiny statue there on the table.
We were pretty young and didn't really get how sort of big he was at the time or what his music meant to people and that he was winning awards. So when he picked up 2 that night, it was very exciting. And the first thing I thought was that now I'm going to meet the Beatles. That was what I was thinking.
And even though there were 3 more to come, I think the one for Moon River and Breakfast at Tiffany was the one that we all remember the most.
Moon River and me.
So he had written a piece for Audrey, and I might have said, when are you going to write one for me? I'm not sure, but he did.
He pretty much wrote what he was hired to write. I know that he wrote a song for my mom. It was a beautiful waltz. It was just this lilting sort of melody. I won't sing it for you, but it was just this very pretty, heartfelt, simple melody.
It communicated a lasting love affair. Still going on. I celebrate every anniversary.
The first things I can remember is my father at the piano playing, writing. He had a drafting desk, and I would sit under the desk with my crayons and had the unlimited supply of the back of the music paper where I could draw, and so this kept me happy.
It was just joyous. He just had a great time with them. You have only to watch any of the videos with the family to see him interact with them. He was just a great father. He used to diaper the children every night before they went to bed. I don't know too many fathers that do that.
Dad was a goofball completely. That's why he was such a good dad. I mean, we had fun with him. He loved being with his family, and he was very hands-on and personal, and it was reflected in his home, it's reflected in his work.
We would always hear piano in the background, a chord here, a chord there, a few notes. You would never hear a piece played in its entirety. That was all in his head. Remember one day he said, "Listen to something I just wrote." I was again under the drafting table, under his writing desk. And I can remember looking up at him and him looking at me and playing. Well, my brain tells me it was Peter Gunn, but I don't know. It was something lively.
Henry never lost the kid in himself, and he was just a great big kid for the most part.
As we were young, we used to live in a neighborhood in our little community in Northridge, and the kids, that was in the day when we were out after school playing kick the can and climbing up on dirt mounds and like being outside and playing. And when it was time to come in for dinner or come in for homework, Dad, he had these bird calls. And I won't even attempt to do them, but they were loud and they were bird calls. And I don't know where he got that notion, but we used to hear that and think, oh, better get home.
And what bird it was, I don't know.
And he used to do it like in restaurants, and he was goofy, I'm telling you. He used to be silly.
And he loved to ski. He loved to ski. He was never a very great skier, but he loved to do it.
And we would go as a tradition to ski every Christmas, sometimes Thanksgiving, sometimes Easter. The early days, he had a boat called the Gunn boat, Gunn boat.
Well, Dad fashioned himself as quite the sailor, quite the captain. And he had a captain's hat, and he bought a boat. It was like a 35-foot motor cruiser.
He had us out on there on the weekends, and his best friend, David Rose, who wrote The Stripper, he was in the dock next to us. So our families down in Newport Beach in the summers, it was always a wonderful time. He was a true Italian, traditional family man. And he would come back from his concerts on Sunday evenings from wherever he was, Cincinnati, Omaha, Boston, you name it, he went there. And he would come back, put his cooking apron on, and cook up some good pasta sauce and pasta for us on Sunday nights.
Dad would be spending hours over a pot on this sauce, and he said, today I'm going to put some green pepper in. Today I'm going to put the little more pepperoncini in. Today, he used to get giddy over his tomato sauce. So that became sort of a running family festive occasion.
And it was just a beautiful time that I can remember.
At the dinner table, I used to sort of have a smart mouth every now and then, and I would bait my dad. And he said, Monica, if you do that one more time, I'm going to pour this bottle of wine over your head. And guess what I did? So I did do it one more time, and sure enough, he came and just poured the bottle of wine over my head. And it was like everyone at the table, that was one of those moments, but he liked his wine too much to waste it on my head, so it would only happen one time, but he just did sort of goofy things like that.
He was into art. He used to paint with watercolor. Very amusing, off-the-wall stuff. Very good.
I don't know what brought it on. There were never any clues early on that he had this, artist in him. But it was very abstract and very odd things. He would do funny birds with weird bodies and people, little stick characters and things. But he had this amazing notion for color.
Very subliminal, abstract, free form. It's like maybe what you would think music looked like. Some recognizable forms. He painted one with a little fish, and then a big fish about to swallow that, and a bigger fish about to swallow that, and he called the name of this piece The Music Business.
When we had our children, it seemed only natural that they would all take piano lessons. To us, it was, reading, writing, arithmetic, and music.
He did urge me to take music lessons, which I did, piano lessons, guitar lessons.
He inspired me deeply in my endeavors in my music. So it's something now that I know I couldn't live without. I could not do.
And anything he had to do with music, he was supportive. He would never put anybody down. He would sit in bars around the world with his musicians and hear the local piano player just destroy one of his pieces, and his musicians are just trying not to laugh. They're at the table like this, and he's going, well, he's giving this piano player just his full attention, and just it's just wonderful.
Many, many musicians give him credit for steering them on the right path.
All you have to do is listen to popular music today, and you can hear the arrangements and tell that arranger read his book, Sounds and Scores.
And countless people come up to me, including really big jazz musicians, that say that they read his book at the very beginning when they were getting into arranging. And it was invaluable to them, and they keep it. And originally it came out with, I think it might have even been an 8-track tape. It all came out with music, and then it went to cassette, and then it went to CD. I don't know what it's going to go to next, but they keep re-releasing it.
It's just a thrill to go so many places in the world, anywhere in the world, and I can hear his music or things that sound like him that would have never been composed unless he had, made the music first.
I think Victor Victoria, my sense is that was Dad's biggest challenge. I mean, he had for years wanted to write a Broadway play, and he had attempted to do a few things that either didn't get the funding or whatever, that were kind of dropped. But Victor Victoria, he really put his heart and soul into that.
It was a sad time because Henry was ill at the time and wasn't around long enough to see it on its feet. He wrote until the very last, though.
He rented a house one summer in Positano in Italy. And being Italian, he didn't speak it very well. He could speak great restaurant Italian, but he had this love of being Italian, the country, the music, the food, everything. He just loved he loved being Italian. He used to love talking about it. And so he and my mom, for their 40th wedding anniversary, rented a villa. And when we were there, he'd have his little portable piano sitting out on the terrace overlooking the Adriatic, and working on Victor Victoria. And I remember him at that point looking about as content, and I've never seen him look so happy, being in Italy with the view and working on his music.
I would describe Henry as being such a gentle giant. He was taller than life. A really, really super human being.
He never lost anything through the years, through his transition from being a nobody to a legend. The people that loved him say he never changed. He was always the same guy, and that's what they loved about him most.
The one thing that my dad's peers will always say about him, the music is second. They always talk about him as a human being. And that's the first thing that anybody will say, God, I miss your dad. He was such a great guy.
We're at to that same
Sorry.
Boy, you emotional.
Well, this is it.